Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back to your favorite or future addiction, The Sean Show. I am here with the regular of The Sean Show, the man with the most everything, Mr. Wade Needham. And we are here to discuss the WWE releases as well as some other shenanigans, whatever is on the mind of us. Um, it's been a crazy few weeks in professional wrestling here from the Bischoff and Tony Khan thing, which we covered here at the Sean Show, and these releases and just a bunch of stuff. So, but before we get into it, remember to like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot here for the channel. There's a lot here for me and for you because you will be notified when the next show pops up. You'll be the first one in line. I promise you. And
Got to click that bell icon.
click that bell icon as well, so that way it pops up. A little notification pops up on your phone. A little gimmicky thing pops up on your phone. Says, "Hey, it's Sean's show popping," right? And if you're listening to us on podcasts, which I've been slacking on the podcast game, it's like I don't know how many shows that I'm behind, but when you get this, make sure you subscribe to the show on podcast. Because that also does a lot for us as well too. And we like talking and we like chilling and we like doing things with each other. Not those type of things, but we like doing things with each other. So I wanted to immediately jump into this thing. But I wanted to do this differently. I wanted to hear the Sean Show. We always start with fact. So I wanted to bring up a very interesting quote by a man by the name of Lance Storm. Now, Lance Storm, if you think about it, Lance Storm used to be a WWE talent, used to be a WWE producer, and that's pretty much his background and his connection to the WWE. So this is what he said. He said that that's the thing that everyone. Oh yeah, and just so you know too, here at the Sean Show Studios, next door at their studios, they're deciding to jackhammer right now. So if you hear that in the back, it is not roadblock. It is someone doing construction on their pool during the wintertime right before Thanksgiving. Just thought I'd throw that out there, but I live in wonderful
I don't.
California.
I'm not hearing
So
anything, so we're all good.
yeah, it will probably pop up. I'm just letting everybody know so that way they're not shocked or surprised or say, "Oh, there's that noise in the back." But yeah, I'm
The
just letting
genetic
everybody know that.
jackhammer laying down
The
groundwork for the future.
right, exactly. Okay, so back to Lance Storm. This is what he said. That's the thing that everyone has to, or at least should realize that they had over signed an insane amount. The fact that they've been able to cut, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 talent in the last 2 years, and the show still has lots of talent and bodies, and for the most part, the same. It just reminded me of when I went back. I signed on as a producer. When I got there, my first instinct was, well, there's like 16 of us. Why do they have so many producers? My first thought was, I better get good at this job and be liked by talent because even then, which was pre pandemic, they could cut a half dozen of us and it wouldn't change anything here. There were TVs where there were two producers assigned to one segment. There would be many TVs where a producer would just do a match on main event. I'm like, there's a lot of bodies here. I knew immediately that there was a chance that any of us were expendable. Then 4 months later, me and 9 others got sacked, although that was more pandemic related. I think when AEW started, they, meaning the WWE, just started signing tons and tons of people. And now they decided that they don't need to hoard talent anymore. And on a whim, they would just cut people now. And they've cut a lot of people. I also, before we comment on that, he talks about NXT. I think this is important too. Um, this is about NXT wanting to hire new talent and train them from scratch. The thing is, what appears to be the new direction with developmental of hiring people with zero background and train them from scratch. If you're looking at several years in development, then maximize a good decade out of them on the main roster, you have to get them young. You go with the thought process that some of these people were good workers who got over in other places when they got signed and still spent 3 or 4 years in developmental. If you want to have a lot of 5 years in developmental and then get them to the main roster before they're in their 30s or by the time they're in their early 30s, you have to sign them young. I think it would actually be more productive if you had talent evaluated every 6 months. When you have upwards of 120 people in developmental, they're not calling up more than half a dozen a year. So it's like you have 20 years worth of talent at the PC, which means you have to figure on 75% failure rate pretty much. If they're going to be more particular in their hires, focus really hard on the ones that they like a Braun Breaker, and get them up in a way, it would be more like what they had in OVW. Storm, ladies and gentlemen. So, Webmaster,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on his comments? And let's kind of take it from there.
Well, let's start with the first set of comments that he made about how many people they had hired, how many people they had released, and whatnot. It's true. You know, you hire on so many people, eventually, you know, you got too much, you've hoarded too much. You don't know what to do with so many people. You only need a certain amount for a certain job. After that, it's definitely oversaturation. So it's inevitable that some people will get cut. The you know, what's the old saying? The cream rises to the top, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening is they're evaluating people backstage and on screen. This is more than just an on-screen thing. This is more than just a roster thing. Cuts are being made on the corporate side of things. There's not been a lot of outrage from fans about that. Gee, I wonder why. Because they don't know, they don't care about these people. They just care about the people that are on screen. Some of these people that have been released haven't been on screen in almost a year, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of outrage, and they're going to forget about these people in the next week or two, maybe even 3 weeks, depending on how popular they were on TV. But guess what? The show goes on. Has the shows drastically changed with some of these people off of television? In my opinion, no. um, Raw and SmackDown are still rolling. They've not lost any momentum.
Yeah.
One show may be weaker or stronger than the other from week to week, but the fact still remains that the momentum, the train is still moving. It hasn't slowed down. It never got any faster either. So it's the same old thing. It's business as usual. It's just going to happen.
Yeah. There was a lot of talent that they got rid of. And we're going to get, more specifically in that talent, who they were, what they were doing, et cetera, et cetera. But there was tons of talent that they've released, like you said, over the last few years. And it seems like to me that the business model, and I heard somebody, I can't take full credit for this, but I heard somebody say that it seems like the business model is now that we're going to give you a short amount of time to get over. And if you don't get over, then you're gonna leave. Um, I think with so many firings that this now causes for more call ups from NXT. I think NXT is going to be a super revolving door. Like, for instance, we're not going to see Braun Breaker this time next year in NXT. He's not going to be on NXT. A lot of those guys that we see now are not going to be in NXT this time next year. So they're trying to expedite the process. I guess a good way to kind of put that to theory is with Austin Theory. Austin Theory is a guy that when he was in NXT, I didn't really see anything in him. They called him up. Heyman called him up when he had the book during the pandemic the pandemic episodes of Monday Night Raw, and Austin was supposed to be aligned with Seth Rollins, and I don't know if he got hurt or something happened where he was no longer going to be on Monday Night Raw, and then they sent him back to NXT. Um, it was a quick turnaround. because now he's on the main roster. Now he's getting somewhat of a semi push. I think that's going to be happening a lot. But I don't disagree with what Lance has stated, that, there's a lot of talent. And if they're not getting over, they're not moving merchandise, they're having backstage problems. And that's what I wanted to ask you too about, is it seems like that there's a lot of individuals that have a lot of problems backstage, in terms of attitude and in terms of them not getting over. So, do you think that this is more of the WWE doing good PR, or if this is a situation where they're like, these guys are difficult? I mean, it's basically all the big ones, minus Braun Strowman, from Bray to Karrion Kross to Keith Lee. They're said to be attitude problems, major attitude problems with Bray Wyatt. What do you say to that?
I can actually speak from experience when it comes to the attitude problem backstage thing. Um, not I mean not I may have been difficult to work with in my time in the indies. There's
Me
people that
too.
I've worked with that I would consider, some would I would consider hard to work with, some that were easy to work with. It's a very subjective thing, because it all depends on an individual's mind frame of what is good work ethic and how you get along with other people.
Right.
Some people can take it to the extreme. If you have one disagreement with somebody, you get nailed with the label of being hard to work with.
Right.
Other people, it takes a lot longer. You have a larger threshold. 6 weeks down the road, if you're clashing constantly, that's hard to work with. Um, if you're very hard headed about something too, if you're very hard mind to change, but you still go with the flow and you actually do it, you know, do what you're told, you still get labeled hard to work with, even if you do business. There was times in the past in my own situation, where I would talk with the booker before a show about commentary notes,
Mhm.
and there was one incident where I was told that I need to really put over a certain heel, like to a very nauseous level. And I took a step back real quick, and I
I
said,
remember
"Well,
that.
I don't think that I should be putting this heel over. I'm not gonna tear him down, but I think my color commentator, broadcast partner, I think should be the one to really get this heel over. I won't
Right.
disagree with him." And the
Right.
booker, he got upset with me. He goes, "You know what? You're right, but we'll talk about this tomorrow." And he hung up on me, and I was like, "All right. I mean, whatever." I probably
Yeah.
got called hard to work with because of that.
Yeah. You shared a story. I'm gonna share a story too. I shared work for this indie company, and the whole premise of it was that there would be a pay per view. But before the pay per view, because it was a restaurant that was attached to it, and what would happen is people would come, uh, before the pay per view started, and they would see a live wrestling show. And then, as soon as that was over, then as they're coming into the restaurant where there were TVs all over the place, then that's when the pay per view would start. And you could order food. It was a big restaurant. It was very nice. It was a very nice setup. I think it was kind of ahead of its time. We had something like that now, with social media. It would just be packed out every single week, or every single pay per view. But one of those issues that I had was that it was the day of the show, and they were waiting for a ring. There was no ring, and there was no ring. So that means everybody that was there couldn't work. So they took it upon themselves to locate a ring. So they said, okay, we're going to go to where the ring was, which I think it was like maybe 45 minutes away, maybe 45 minutes to an hour away,
Wow.
Sunday afternoon traffic. And they went to where the ring was, and we had to wait for them to load the ring and then bring it back. Now, mind you, a ring is not like a tent.
Hell no, it ain't.
Like, it is a
Especially the
lot
older
of
ones.
pieces. It's a lot of pieces. It's a lot of moving parts. They had to load it into the truck. But the thing is like when they got there, the ring was built. So they had to break down the ring and then put it in the truck
Wow.
and then come back. And then, so when all this happened, I had the grandiose idea. I was dealing with uh, possible investors at a business plan with a certain individual. I'm not going to say his name, but a certain tariff, a certain individual that uh, me and him had this idea that we were going to start our own wrestling company. And I had a lot of interested investors. I don't know what the hell I was doing as a kid. But I had people that were interested. I actually had people that said that they would commit to second round funding. Second round funding means that if I were to get someone that would commit to the first initial investment, then they would match that on the second initial investment. So I had that in writing. And I felt that it would be great to lift everyone's morale if I mentioned that I had this situation set up where an investor could possibly come in and invest into what we were doing. That was the wrong idea because now it makes it look like that I am trying to poach talent. It makes it look like that I am trying to make the promoter and owner look bad. It makes it look as if I don't trust what's going on. And by the way, I'm green as hell. So I brought all of the talent out to the yard and we had a wrestlers only meeting. I explained to them what was going on. And then, like, the rest of the day, I got real crazy looks from people, especially one wrestler that he would just ask so many questions. So, who's the investor? Who's this? Who's that? I need to know their names. I need to know more information. I needed to, like, he wanted to take control over this shit.
Oh wow.
And he, basically, I got a lot of heat for that, but my intention was not to get heat. My intention was to help and to lift morale because this is WrestleMania day and there's no ring. And by the time they showed up, this was like an hour and a half into WrestleMania.
Oh man.
And it was like, and no one cared. They were watching WrestleMania at that point in
Yeah.
80. So I think it can be misinterpreted that, yeah, you can say certain things that could possibly get you heat, but that may not be your intention. And it seems like all of the heat is centered around these guys that were trying to protect their character. Um, Keith Lee was trying to protect whatever little interest he had. Karrion Cross was trying to. They said there was a big push backstage to get Karrion a part of, well, package with Scarlett, which for whatever reason they just never liked her. I don't know why. They never really put her into any program. They never really had her talk a lot. Maybe Triple H was a huge proponent of Scarlett, but they never really liked Scarlett for whatever reason.
I wonder if this year the holidays with the McMahons, Triple H is going to get a huge tractor full of coal from Vince or something because he did something bad that Vince didn't like. That's the only explanation, man.
Yeah, is Vince came in and said NXT is going in the wrong direction, but he was right.
Yeah.
He was right. And NXT, the old version, just kept looking more and more and more and more and more like a hobby for Triple H. Hardcore punk music. What was that chick that they would always have that come and sing like the theme songs and stuff? I forgot her name.
It wasn't Poppy, was it? Because Poppy
I
was.
want to I want to say it was Poppy. I don't know her, but they would have her come and do the theme songs, and it was skull and crossbones almost looking logo,
Yeah.
and dark cage and grungy looking, and that's Triple H. That's him all day long.
Oh yeah.
Um, for Vince to come in and say that we're doing everything opposite, like we're throwing color in, and the announcers don't even wear suits anymore.
Yeah, I
You
noticed
know,
that lately. Yeah.
yeah, there's just real laid back and there's not a lot of comedy. It's not a
It
lot of
it kinda looks like what if you were to take, Wrestling Society X and evolve it into 2021, what it would possibly look like, wouldn't it?
right. Yeah, that's the best way of putting it. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that there was a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of really disappointing numbers that came through with NXT, and Vince had to come in and do something about it. And I think that they've gotten back. I think the numbers just came out. They've gotten back to where they were, which was about 600,000 people um, before they decided to change everything. So they're back at that number. So it'll be interesting moving forward to see what would happen in terms of how they're going to evolve the brand, and because everyone thought that Braun Breaker, that was his crowning moment, like that was coronation night for him
Yeah.
when he faced Tommaso Ciampa. Um, Everyone thought that. I didn't think that. I thought he was too green, it was too early, but it just ought to be interesting as they move forward. But let's go over some of these firings. Just off the bat, I mean, we don't have to name them one by one because everyone's familiar with the names and the list of people. But what is the most shocking to you in terms of firings that have occurred um, within this latest batch? I hate to say batch, like it's more to come, but batch of firings that took, or releases that just took place.
Most shocking is Keith Lee to me. Um, I he just re-debuted. It was the season premiere of Raw. They made him a huge deal. They spent a lot of time to try to get him and other people to put over the fact that it was his idea for the Bearcat thing, which of course
Yeah,
the day after he's released, he debunked that by saying it wasn't his idea. But they put a lot into Keith Lee. This year alone, even with him not being on TV, just the amount of behind the scenes stuff they did to really make sure that people did not forget about him,
yeah.
where he saves face about the time that he was not on television,
Hmm.
and the whole Bearcat thing. So that right there was definitely a huge surprise to me. Nia Jax is probably the second most shocked to me because of
Oh
her
man, yeah.
lineage,
Hmm.
just the lineage alone. You know, from a talent standpoint, probably would have got rid of her a long time ago. And I'm not saying that with malice. I'm just saying if you were to compare Nia Jax to, like, I don't know, 80% of the women that are signed to that company right now, there's a huge downside to Nia Jax. Uh, so I mean, there's nothing personal. And then I would say that the third most shocking to me, it has to be Karrion Cross. But then again,
Yeah,
with the last 2 months, his direction on the main roster, it shouldn't be a surprise.
yeah. I want to tackle this Nia Jax thing real quick. Um, a lot of people don't like her because of her being unsafe in the ring. Um, I find it very odd in terms of timing that you just had this situation with Charlotte that went worldwide in the ring when you guys were shooting against each other, and you won the match. I don't know if you won. I don't know if you were supposed to. If that was a shoot, if you're supposed to win the match because you won clean, but you won that match when you were facing her the first time, and she was a champion at the time, Charlotte. So you pinned the champion cleanly, and then the next week they had you give that victory right back to her. And then I think it was the following week um, where Shayna Baszler faced Charlotte, and I think Nia Jax got involved. I think, and then I think they ran it back again that following week, and then that's when Shayna Baszler took her out. I think they had a match. Didn't they have a match against each other? Shayna
I
and Nia Jax.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so somewhere along that timeline, they had a match, and then Shayna injured Nia Jax and took her out. So I think the timing is very suspicious to me that all of this happened and then you let her go. They've been having problems with Charlotte um, from really it started back when she was in the storyline with her father.
Yeah.
She didn't like it. She was very vocal about not liking it. And we had this whole thing with Nia Jax. We had the thing with Becky Lynch. We had the thing about her being backstage at the AAA show. Um, Supposedly, she missed a house show to be there for that show. So there's been a lot of problems with Charlotte. And I know that she signed on. They said that she has a few more years on her contract. So I think that that was kind of like a goodwill thing towards her that we're going to cut Nia because of whatever heat that you had, because Nia was probably the head of the heat, you know? Normally in these locker rooms, they always say there's locker room leaders. There are locker room leaders. This is some inside baseball talk. But a
Yeah.
lot of the times there are two different factions. There are, and the best way to explain this is like back in the day, you had the clique and you had the Bone Street crew. That's the best way that you can explain what I'm saying when I say um, there were different type of cliques or leadership in the locker room. One belief system's over here, one belief system is over there. So I think Nia might have been a leader of the locker room of a certain group of individuals. And Charlotte, who a lot of people don't like her, but just since her seniority and her skill, she became a locker room leader as well too. Somebody had to go, and I think Nia was the one that was the one that left. She said that she was shocked. Remember, they were saying that she was not vaccinated or something. Um,
Yeah. That was a rumor that came up.
that was a rumor. She broke her silence and she had stated that she requested time off because of some mental health and family issues. And the family issues, she said she didn't want to talk about it. They were really bad. But the WWE had agreed to give her the time off. But then they said they want you to come back on November 17th. And for whatever reason, she said, no, I need more time. So that supposedly led to her firing. Um, it seems to me that that kind of is the trend right now with WWE management. Do you remember the story of Bray Wyatt and him needing more time off because he was trying to get his thoughts and his mind together? Do you remember that story?
Yeah, vaguely. That was not long before he was released, right?
Right. They were saying because of the passing of Brody Lee, um, there was another show, Keeping It 100, um, where their news broadcaster came on there and he has inside information. He was saying that he had a baby, then the Brody situation happened, and then his wife got pregnant right again, right, you know, immediately. So it was like a lot going on for him to digest. So he kept asking for time off. And then when he was rumored to come back, they wanted him to job to Bobby Lashley. He didn't want to do that. He want to do that. So it seems to me that there's a pattern here that you cannot be someone that I hate to say requires a lot, but I'm going to say requires a lot. Do you see that as the trend? Were these guys that are requiring a lot, these talent that's requiring a lot, the WWE really doesn't have any tolerance for them anymore?
I think it's a reflection on how society has changed. 30 years ago, the mentality was you can't miss a date, you can't miss a show, otherwise your spot is going to be given to somebody else.
Right.
And a lot of guys, like 99.9% of the guys, they saw that, they accepted it, they ran with it, and it ruined a lot of their personal lives.
Right.
Skip ahead 30 years later, it's the other way around because a lot of people are more tuned in to the consequences of not taking care of your own mental health. And so they can afford to speak up for themselves, stand up for themselves, and say, I need more time because I don't want to ruin my life. I don't want to ruin my significant other's life, my family, and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think with that, not only did society and how people take mental health has changed, but distribution of product and promoting yourself as a separate entity as well has changed.
Yeah.
Social media, Web 2.0, Web 3.0, really. No one is going to be forgotten as much as they were 30 years ago. Somebody was taken off a TV in 1990, you didn't know what happened to them. But in
Yeah.
2021, they get taken off a TV, you go to their Facebook, you go to their Instagram, their Snapchat, their TikTok, their Twitter, you can still keep tabs of what these people are doing, and there's a lot of promotions out there. One thing that irritates me is everybody always talking about, oh, wrestling died when the territories died. The territory system itself, yeah, it died for a while. But with as much independent wrestling as there is today, and a lot of non-mainstream promotions that are out there, and with the advent of YouTube and TikTok and iPay-per-view and all this stuff, the wrestling business is thriving a lot more than it has ever been because there's a lot more options and there's a lot more accessibility to these options. So, I mean, pardon my French here, but get the fuck out of here with, you know, sorry for the language. I know you're going to have to bleep that out. It's going to sound like, the Osbournes over here,
Yeah, I cursed earlier, so it's only fair.
but, I hope what I'm saying is kind of making a little bit of sense there.
Yeah, no, I get it 110%. That this is it used to be back in the day. Let me just use an example, right? An example of I work with a group of individuals in real life, and we do marketing in real life, right? And there's this guy that just we come on Zoom every morning. They call it the huddle up, and we all come on there. We huddle up and we talk about what needs to be done for the day. Um, we do that every single day, and we kind of break, and then we go do what we got to do, and then throughout the day, if we need to communicate, we communicate. So there's this guy that recently got hired, and when he got hired to come in, he was actually related to one of the people that already was there. He was a brother of the guy, and when he, I guess you could say, debuted on the morning huddle ups, then everyone would say, "Oh, hey, hey, so and so, how you doing?" And da, da, da. So after that day, he got sick, and he started having some issues with his stomach, and he started having some issues with other, he just wouldn't show up to these 15-minute huddle up meetings that we would have every single morning. And you just got the job. You're trying to make a first impression, and you're not showing up. Now, I don't know anything about his health personally. I don't know that. But me and you are from the old school. So if we're sick, I'm still going to pop in front of this camera and say, "Hello, sir. What's going on? I feel like trash, but I'm here. I'm trying to help the company." That mentality is gone. It's just completely gone. And now is all about trying to cater to people who feel a certain way or do a certain thing. It's all about catering at this point in this day and age. And like for me, coming from a older school, that wasn't about that. Like if we were sick, then sometimes our parents would say, "You still got to go to school."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you know, um, you got a test You still got to go to school, right? And you could be as a dog, huh? As a dog. See what I did there? Wade's dog, Wade's dog was barking. But you could be as sick as a dog, and you could still you're still expected to go to school. Now, I mean, pre-pandemic, it was like, do you not feel well? Do you need a personal day? Do you need time to sit down and gather your thoughts and reflect on the things that's going on in your life? Would you like to take a time out? Maybe a nap? Maybe there's some music that we can play that can soothe you to make you feel better about yourself. You go to,
Would you like a warm towelette?
would you like a towel? Would you like a massage, sir? Like,
Ooh.
these are the things.
Like what kind of massage? Like are we
Yeah,
talking like a rub and tug or what? Like
I don't know what we're talking about, but all these type of things happen now in society
yeah.
that is just different, and I think the WWE doesn't tolerate it. Now, the thing I don't like is, like, you got a guy like Keith Lee that it just immediately just bashes the company. No, I didn't call myself Bearcat, never. And carrying cross, somebody says, "Well, give me the helmet." Oh, nobody wants that BS.
Yeah, I
Throw it
saw that
away.
exchange.
Yeah. And Frankie Monet, they lied to me in my face. There's a snake in my boots. Like, come on, man.
Wait, a snake in her boots?
Yeah,
Is that what she said?
no, I just made that up.
Oh, I was gonna say I've never heard that before.
That's a line from Toy Story. Toy Story, 1994, Pixar.
Leave it to Gold Dust to be a Woody fan.
Gold Yeah, but um, that's basically come on.
No, but on the other side of things, there's Scarlett, who immediately
Yes.
went on the rampage of getting jobs booked. She's
Hmm.
got bookings and modeling things, and she's advertising all these different things she's going to be doing. And she had the NXT contract, so it's a 30-day no compete, not a 90-day. So we'll get to
I don't
see
think
her on
she.
a lot
I
of
don't.
things.
Yeah, I don't think. I think that she kind of was already working on these things, and you're painting the picture like, okay, well, she's just off to the race. No, putting a business deal together takes some time. I think that she had these deals probably in the pipeline, but since she was signed to the WWE, they have to approve everything.
Yeah.
So now that she doesn't need that approval anymore, she got her notice, and she says, "I'll just do it," and she
Yeah, but I
got
mean, I
booked.
guess the real message I'm trying to put across is there's different ways that you can present yourself after you get fired. You could be
Oh
bitter,
yeah,
or you could just take the initiative and just run with it and say, "Hey, look, I had a run here. It's cool. I'm off to do other things."
yeah. There's two ways to look at that, and I do agree with that 100%. That you can be a victor or victim,
Yeah,
and I think that
I like that. I never heard that before, but I like that.
well, thank you. I
I'm putting that right up there with another line you said a long time ago. It stuck with me. Got to sell yourself like you need the rent.
you gotta sell yourself like the renters do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've said that
Um,
to many professors in classes too, and they love it too. They started using it.
yeah, because I mean, this is the thing, right? And let's piggyback off of that since you mentioned that. Let's piggyback off of that. Um, you essentially have to do that if you are an independent contractor, which these guys are signed on as in the guys and gals as independent contractors. If you're an independent contractor, you have to always have the capability, since you're your own business, of coming up with different cash flows,
Yeah.
different revenue streams. You're focused primarily on WWE, 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 WWE. But if you're a business and you're having money coming in, then you need to invest that into other places. So when something like this happens, then you could just go sit down and say, well, I'm making money over here. I'm making money over there. I don't need wrestling. I could just chill out for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are doing with their Twitch streams is they're creating a personality connect where you may not even fool with me as a wrestler, but you may like me as a person,
Oh yeah.
and you may buy my brand. Like the other firing that I didn't get was
Well,
beat.
I hate to cut you off, but I want to
Go ahead.
add on just very
No, no,
briefly
no,
to
no,
what you
no.
were
Go.
talking
Yeah,
about.
please go ahead.
It goes the other way around too, not just like the Twitch stuff, but if you take a look at the Bella twins, they started Birdie B.
Yes.
You look at Maurice, she started, her line of makeup and skincare stuff as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're right. You could separate the people that know what they're doing and the people that don't know what they're doing by how they plan for the future.
Yeah, our truth had recently said he did an interview in Atlanta that I actually saw late one night recently, and he was talking about how he got into the business and he wanted to be someone that was in the music business, a rapper and stuff like that. So one of the promoters came to him and said, "Listen, imagine if they played your theme song every single night to thousands of people, and it's you rapping." Then he was like, "Oh man, that's a great idea." And then that's when he started singing and rapping and doing that because at the time nobody was doing that. So the way that he put it is that the platform that the WWE gave him, he said he can go to Dubai, Egypt, wherever, and people who can't speak American will come up to him and say, "What's up? What's up? What's up?" So he created a branding and imaging of himself that if he were ever released, he now has a fan base that he can go to because he's in the business of Ron killings, of our truth. He's in that business. So that is the thing that I think a lot of talent don't get. These guys are making a lot of money, six figures easily. And I'm like, even if you're on the low spectrum, you're making like maybe $100,000 to $150,000 a year. You have to figure out a way to make that money work for you, and you cannot just depend on professional wrestling. Anything you want to add to that before I move on to the next thing that I was kind of upset about in terms of the firings?
No, I mean not really. It's just best best thing to put it is you just got to plan for the future. I can't just think in the present day. I'm getting a paycheck for what I'm doing right now. Don't really
Right.
care about what's going on tomorrow. You got to look at tomorrow, especially now. I think that's what this pandemic, I think, is one of the biggest teaching lessons is
Absolutely.
plan towards the future, plan, mitigate, what's going to happen if this happens. What do I do here? You have to have a contingency plan,
Yeah,
maybe even two of them.
they have a contingency plan, and then you also have to have um, a strategy. People have plans to want to do things, and this is just life talk right now.
Yeah.
People have plans to want to do things, but you have to have a blueprint on how to execute it. A lot of people, for instance, they want to do YouTube, um, and they say that they would be great at it. Okay, well, what is your plan to be on YouTube? Have you researched it? Have you done all of the things that you need to do to make it successful for yourself? Do you have money to pour into this project to support this project? Do you have another income that you can lean on? So when things get bad over here, you're getting paid from over there. Those are the principles that maybe the WWE should teach. Um, when football players come in, NBA players come in, rookies, they have this retreat and they tell them what they should watch out for. They tell them to watch out for people who will do this and watch out for people who can do that. And these are money managers that a lot of people work with that we suggest that you speak to or speak to one and figure out how to, maximize your money, your paycheck. Like these are the type of conversations that they have. And maybe they should do that with wrestling. But that's just life advice. Like everyone can have a plan, but you need a blueprint. What is step 1? What is step 10? How do you get from there to there? And then research. Don't follow anybody that hasn't been successful in that field. Everyone has an opinion. Like everyone's on this whole cryptocurrency craze right now, right? You're muted. You're muted. Can you?
Sorry. I see ads in the movie theater for crypto. That's how big of a thing that is.
Right, crypto, NFTs, all of that. It's a big deal right now.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into it, who are the people that are actually successful in it? Don't just follow somebody that's on YouTube and says, "Well, this is what I do," and this is no. Are you wealthy in this? Do you do this every day for a living? You know,
Yeah.
that's the questions that people need to ask when they're looking to make a blueprint and do things. But that was just a little life talk. Um, I wanted to talk about one of the firings. This is one of the firings of I text you and I was very upset about. It's BFAB.
Yeah.
Um, Now, granted, she's very, very green, very, very green.
Green in the ring, not on the mic.
On the mic, she's great,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to find someone that is that confident, especially a female talent, because there's not a lot of female talent that can really speak on the mic
At that age too.
at that young of an age. Absolutely. So she has a very unique look. She's very tall, statuous, um, beautiful girl.
Hell yeah.
She can rap, everything. She was the completing factor of Hit Row to me because we've never seen a faction where it was three guys and one woman, and the woman wasn't like a valet. She was her own person. She would put them over, and they in turn would put her over.
I think the closest we probably could have got to that maybe DX, the original.
Made with China, yeah,
They put her over, she put them over. I mean,
but
I
she
mean
but
that
she
was
debuted,
a whole
but
different act
she
though.
yeah, but she debuted as a valet, the
Well, yeah,
manager, I guess, bodyguard. They were
yeah,
doing the new age thing where it was like she was Triple H's bodyguard. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I definitely would say China was an innovator, trailblazer of a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, so absolutely that she should be put in that conversation. But this role with BFAB and then just bringing them up and introducing them to SmackDown and to take her out, that just to me doesn't make any sense. I don't know the thinking behind that.
At least give them 30 days on the main roster at the very least, not like drop them 1 week after they show up on SmackDown.
It's kind of shameful because everyone goes with the well when they go to NXT, call from NXT, then they screw it up. And I think the only person that they've gotten right and improved of recent memory is Damian Priest.
Damian Priest fits the mold on every checkbox for Vince.
Yeah, he does. He's tall. He speaks English very, very well as Spanish.
Yep.
Um,
His
he
charisma is off the charts.
great charisma, great speaking voice, and he can go.
Yep.
He's very talented. I didn't know he was this talented. When I seen him in matches in NXT, there would be good matches, but he's putting on like match of the night matches. That match that he had with T-Bar,
Yeah.
that stole the night.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting that they got that right. And let me ask you a question. Do you think it's a Vince thing? Do you think that Vince sees these guys, they're called up, and then if he likes them, maybe like an Austin Theory, then that's when he decides, all right, I'm going to keep everything the same, but just improve on them.
It's that's tough to answer because I'm not on the inside. I can only comment on what I would perceive from the outside. And I think maybe that does have a little bit to do with it. I think a big component is who's coachable and who's not. Um, Not just in wrestling, but just in life in general. There's plenty
Right.
of people out there that when they get a job, they think they're know-it-alls. They think they know it better than the boss and all that kind of stuff. I've had family
Yeah.
members, have 20 jobs in 1 year. That does not
Oof.
look good when you're going into a job interview, you
Right.
know? Now,
No,
if
it
you
doesn't.
had one job for 20 years and you go into another one, they're gonna be like, all right, well, you've got longevity, you got loyalty. Obviously, you were well enough to get along with the people you work with and your bosses, superiors, and whatnot. We're probably gonna, take a look at everything you've got. So I think that's a big component right there is who's coachable and who's not. Who's coming in from, say, the indies and like, well, it worked for me there in front of 50 people. It's going to work in front of 50,000 people, and you can't convince me otherwise. And that kind of goes back to the whole they're hard to work with kind of thing, too.
Yeah.
It all blends in together.
Yeah. Um, there needs to be an attitude adjustment, no pun intended,
Uh,
um, with talent.
yeah.
I think that is why they don't want to mess with indie superstars so much. Because if you bring them in, they already have a chip on their shoulder. And with that chip on their shoulder, they feel like they know how to work because they've gotten over on the indies compared to working WWE style. So they kind of have a chip on their shoulder, like, well, you know, he can't go. He doesn't have my work rate. He didn't get over by himself. He can't go 60 minutes. He can't call a match. All his matches is horrible when he calls them. So if we develop them young, get them young, mold them to what we want, then I think it's a different vibe and a different situation for them. So our last topic.
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen the
Yeah,
movie called Center Stage?
sounds familiar, but no.
Came out in 2000. It's about a ballet school, like the most prestigious elite ballet school. They picked the best of the best in high school to come out to this, university, right?
Hmm.
And you would think they are
This
the
is a
best of the best.
this is a documentary
No, it's a film,
or oh,
just a
so
movie.
it's a okay, I got you.
Yeah,
Got you.
but I bet you
It
there's
could be real.
a lot of research probably went into it enough where they probably took real life situations.
Got it.
A good screenwriter will do that. You have to make it as believable as you possibly can. But they took, the best of the best. You would think because of that, when you get the best together, it's going to be even better. But it wasn't the case because you had so many egos because person over there was the best. Person over there was the best. So when they get
Yeah.
together, they're going to say, well, I'm here because I was the best. I don't know why you're here. And the other way around. And then you're going to have arguments. And then the teachers are going to come in. The teachers are going to say, do it this way. And they're going to be like, well, if you wanted me to do it that way and I was the best where I came from, then why'd you even bring me in here if I'm not doing it correctly? There's a lot of ego. And that applies to wrestling more so today than 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I think too 20, 30 years ago also there wasn't a WWE style. There was just guys who can work and guys who couldn't
Yeah.
because the style overall was the same.
Mhm.
You might have had some guys that like to do some stuff off the top rope sometimes. Like if you think about it, the Rockers were considered a high flying act back then. Now it would be a joke. The
Yeah, they'd probably be
Rockers,
like FTR right now. Like,
yeah, right, exactly. But they were like a high flying act because he jumped off the top rope and did a axe handle smash.
yeah.
Like they were considered that. And you look at somebody like the Lucha Bros or freaking the Young Bucks. It's a joke.
Yeah.
They're high flying. compared to them. So I think it wasn't much of an adjustment that needed to be done because a lot of those guys too, if you think about it, wrestling was kind of young. So a lot of guys got trained by the same people. Wasn't a lot of different wrestling schools like there is now.
Oh yeah.
There's so many different wrestling schools now. It's not even funny how many different wrestling schools there are in general, where these are not even guys that made it. These are guys that are like, I used to ref. I refed for WCW and not on the main roster, but in the power plant. And now I'm going to teach you to be a wrestler.
And that's not even a like an old change. That's a new one. I mean, you can go back 10 years and there's a big difference of how many wrestling schools there are out there. 10 years ago, somebody asked me, "Hey, where's a good idea to train?" I could think of two places in Southern California to name off the top of my head 10 years ago. Today is probably a half a dozen.
It's probably absolutely. It's probably half a dozen, and then there's probably um, you can divide them into northern and southern California.
Yeah.
Compared to just like back in the day, hey, if you want to work, then you need to move to New York and learn from this guy, or
Yeah.
move to Texas and learn from Jose Lothario or something. Like you didn't have to. You didn't have to. You don't have to move to learn now. Back
Yeah.
then, you had to go to where the tops were, the top guys, top talent was. But yeah, I mean the whole thing, and I want to transition to our last topic. The whole thing that I'm kind of disappointed in is now that we've taken a lot of talent away, where do we go from here? You have to have kind of in your mind what the next thing is in something that is so fast moving like wrestling. If there was a barrage of injuries right now, which, we don't want any injuries, but let's just say there were, how are you going to cover this when you've gotten rid of guys like Keith Lee, who could have been realistically put in a main event feud and everybody would have believed it, or a Karrion Cross, who may not have been in the main event feud yet, but you could have put him in a program easily with Damian Priest around the United States Championship. What do you do now to basically proceed into the next generation when this next generation is basically fired?
It's a good question. One thing that came to my mind was uh how they tackled the situation that happened 2 years ago leading into Survivor Series when SmackDown what they got left in London or something like that, wasn't it? So they decided, hey, we're gonna bring in the NXT guys over to SmackDown and put on a show. And that really popped a lot of the NXT talent. And then they started to involve them into the Survivor Series build.
Which is
And that
great.
was the best Survivor Series build in the last 20 years.
In a long time, for sure.
Yeah, that really made NXT look like the third brand.
Yeah.
Um, I think they could do something like that, but that's short term. That's putting a band-aid on a cut off limb, you know?
Right.
So long term, I have no idea. Now off the top of my head, you give me a week or two, I could probably come up with something, but that's such a big, big question.
Yeah, I think that if I'm the WWE and I'm thinking like, because I mean, we got to think fast. Like the Royal Rumble's right around the corner, so we got to start figuring out what our plans are for WrestleMania. So it seems like the plans are going to be Lesnar Reigns at Mania. Big E, I don't know who you have him face. I don't really think, and people may hate this, but I don't think Big E is going to be champion by WrestleMania. It's not working. You have guys, you look at a guy like Seth Rollins, and then you look at Big E, and then you tell me who deserves to be world champion.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, as much as I like Big E, Seth Rollins, I mean, an advantage he has. He has the proven track record on top. This Big E's first run. But yeah, go with
He's
Seth
on
Rollins.
fire. Seth Rollins is on fire right now.
Been on fire for
Um,
the last year.
yeah, this new persona, the drip god, and all that. This obnoxious laugh. Like
Those
this is
outfits.
the like. Come on, man! Like this is the music, everything. It is a complete package, and
Yeah.
I think that he. And then what's funny is like Becky Lynch is even starting to try to um, dress crazy looks. Um, on Monday, they had her come out with the new graphics, Big Time Bex graphics. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't watched Raw this week yet.
Okay, yeah. Well, she has new graphics that say Big Time Bex,
Hmm.
and it's really dope looking. And she's wearing all this futuristic looking stuff. So it's really good what they're doing with a guy like Seth Rollins. But heaven forbid, what happens if he gets hurt?
Mm.
Then what are you going to do? There's no one to call up. So I think that they're gambling right now to try to make it to the long term by screwing the short term. And that's what I ultimately think. I think they feel like if we make it to WrestleMania, then we can figure out what we're going to do from there. So
That's not a good thing either. You should have that figured out before you're ready to start a whole new crop of things. But then again, when was the last time WrestleMania was the end of stuff and the start of new stuff anyway, right?
yeah, well, not definitely here within the last few years because
No.
WrestleMania was always seen as like the start of a new season. You have the heel champion finally get beat, and then now it was time for like normally around this time, November, December, like if you think about it, like these heel champions would be in like Hell in the Cell matches and cage matches and just making it look like this reign would never end until the baby face comes in and beats them. That's always been their, mentality.
Yeah.
And then what also sucks too is like you fire so many people, like I would love to see a surprise at the Royal Rumble, but who's gonna show up?
What if Bray Wyatt showed up in the Royal Rumble? How would your reaction be to that?
I would not. I listen. I think Bray being released was a huge mistake, and I think Braun being released was a huge mistake, even over Keith Lee and Karrion Cross to me. Braun Strowman, they were still trying to figure out what to do with him, and I think they were just about there with the music, with the smoke, with we're not saying get these hands anymore. Like you were trying to push the Strowman Express. You were trying to do something different with him. When he got in that Bray Wyatt feud and he changed his look, like you were trying to do something different with him.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those I would not be upset. What would your reaction be? What if he won the Rumble?
If it was Bray Wyatt coming back and then he wins, I guess it would all depend. If he came back as Bray Wyatt, the Fiend kind of thing, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would pop for it.
For sure.
But I think I would probably be happier and have a bigger pop if it was the cult leader Bray Wyatt that came back. You know, and I would love to see a singles run with that Bray Wyatt more than the Fiend. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed bits and pieces of the Fiend. I wasn't a huge mark for the character of the run. I enjoyed the entrance when he first
The
debuted
entrance
it
is
at
great. That was
SummerSlam.
that was he already got over by just coming
Yeah.
out and didn't even wrestle a lick.
Yeah, but you know what? As soon as like maybe a minute after the bell rang, for me at least, it went out the window. I wasn't like a huge mega fan of the character or anything. The vignettes were perfect. The
Mhm.
in ring, I don't think they knew how to transition the greatness of what we saw in those videos to how to present them in the ring. But the
Well,
pandemic era Bray Wyatt was really good.
yeah, because they could use all these camera angles and camera
Yeah,
tricks to kind of get him over.
yeah.
Um,
That's a cinematic character.
yeah, I'm just surprised because everyone was kind of under the impression that Bray was going to be the new Taker.
Just because it's a dark character.
It
That's
was
the
a
only
dark
connection.
character that was over.
Yeah.
And there's no one that really has that spookiness. When Alexa Bliss comes back, I'm very sure we're done with this whole, demonic thing, which it never really got over.
Yeah.
Um, they were expecting like the dolls to be sold out like Cabbage Patch dolls or something, and it just wasn't. But
Well,
yeah,
she moved a lot of merch.
she moved a lot of merch, but I think they expected her to be a top seller,
Yeah.
and
Well, they
surprisingly,
they got the holiday version of Lily out, so they're still pushing that.
I think that was in development like a while back. And I
Yeah.
think they, because you can't just like mass produce these things without having a kind of like
Well,
a,
yeah.
yeah, but and she did promote it. So
And I mean, I'm pretty sure you saw the response of how many people dressed up as her for Halloween.
yeah,
She promoted the hell out of that.
yeah, yeah. So it ought to be interesting if she comes back as that character.
Yeah.
But I think that we need to give it up. But then again, um, if she's just Alexa Bliss, then she's just kind of like another chick. So
I greatly miss the goddess Alexa Bliss. That's a good character.
that was a good character, but if she comes back as a goddess, you have a queen, and then you have the queen of the ring, and then you have, the boss. Like, I don't know. But anyway,
A lot of authority.
a lot of authority is a whole management team of people. Who's going to be the supervisor? That's all I want to know.
The jackal,
Who's going to be the assistant manager,
the
assistant
project
district
manager.
manager? Yeah. Who's going to be the Dwight Schrute of the women's division? That's what I want to know. But anyway, guys,
Joe
thank you,
Gacy.
Joe. Yeah, you probably will, right? Him
Right.
and his snowflake, right?
Now that's a character right there, man. Joe Gacy, that dude has got it.
He's got it. And then the match he put on with Tommaso Ciampa
Mm,
when he was trying to earn a spot and make that a triple threat, which, in hindsight, I think it probably should have been a triple threat to protect Braun Breaker.
yeah.
That was really good. He can go. He can go.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a question for you real quick before we,
Sure.
wrap. Did somebody say Andre Chase?
It's funny.
I love that character so much.
I tell you who I hate is this whole poker room gimmick.
I'm on the fence on that one too.
I don't like it. He's too talented to just be in a big gold, vest from Razor Ramon and then have him lose. Like the first time we see him competing in a poker room, he loses. That doesn't make any sense. I'm supposed to be the best at this, but you lose? I don't know.
I love the interaction of him and Grimes though. Grimes, that dude he's got the Midas touch. Anybody is in a program with Cameron Grimes, they're gold. It took a little while for them to figure out Grimes, but he's
Yeah,
definitely
because I didn't like him until they did this whole "I'm rich" Grimes,
yeah.
and I had him do a lot of character development with Ted DiBiase.
Oh yeah.
So they definitely made him, and to the moon. And on
Yep.
that note, thank you guys for listening to the Sean Show. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, notify yourself, all of that. Wade, any plugs before we get on out of here?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always fun, always a pleasure. Really appreciate it. As far as plugs go, ringscoops.com for anything wrestling related. That is a project of mine. Another one that's coming up pretty soon, if anybody wants to check out, if you like movies like I do, cinemaflare.com. That's the flare, FLARE, like a spark kind of flare, right? Cinemaflare.com. And if you are into Disney, check me out on Instagram at Magic Key on Wheels. Just went to Disneyland a couple days ago. got this cool little bad boy right here, man. A Jedi artifact. That's right. To the moon.
So
That's it. That's the plugs.
so if you want to find out more information about the Jedi artifact, please follow him. And if you happen to see a cup holder over there, tell them that I have problems with it. I have deep problems with the cup holder.
Yep.
And I'll tell you about that some other time. But me and the cup holder, we got some we're gonna have to just fight. Because it's like there's no other way.
We got some early WrestleMania plans right there. You could.
There's
I
no
think
other way.
that's going to take place in
We just
Dallas.
gotta get down real quick. There's no other way. There's
Yeah.
no other way. We can't talk it out or nothing. We're just gonna have to. Me and the cup holder. I'll tell you about this one day, guys. You got to keep coming back because the story might just pop out one day. But me and it just don't. Me and the cup holder. Hell in a cell. That's all I'm gonna say.
That story going to pop out like a Janet Jackson. You know what?
That's all I'm gonna say. So, guys, thanks for listening, and we will see you here next time here on the Sean Show. Peace.